Hi everyone, it's Alexi Uzas here. Are you trying to finance your film? Well, in this video, I'm going to give you a film financing 101. For the best filmmaking advice, subscribe to my channel and hit the bell to be notified when I release a video every Wednesday. In the past 5 years, I've financed and produced 4 feature films, and I've helped another 4 films close finance using the same system that I used to finance and produce my films. And now you can do the same. The first point that I want to make when it comes to film financing is that no one will raise finance for your project like you will. And what I mean by that is that there's no one out there in the entire world that's going to care about your project more than you do. And even more than that, I think that there's a misconception in the film industry that you can go out there and find a producer or an EP who's going to take on your project and is going to go out there and start raising private finance from all these investors that they know. That really just does not exist in my experience. It doesn't mean it's not out there. I'm sure that there are people in Hollywood that you could come across that are so-called rainmakers, but honestly, in my experience, I've never come across someone like that. And so what you really need to understand as an independent filmmaker is that you're going to need to take on the brunt of that work. You're going to need to put in the time that's required to go out there and raise that finance. And if you come to a project with that mindset, then you're not going to be sitting around waiting or hoping that a miracle is going to happen and someone's going to come into the picture and start raising finance for you. Because like I said, in my experience, that really doesn't happen. It always falls on the filmmakers to get out there and hit the pavement and start raising finance for their project. So the more that you can understand that from the very beginning, the more you're going to be putting yourself in a better chance for success. So it's a really important thing to understand. Again, no one's going to be as passionate, as determined, or as committed about your project as you are, and that extends to the raising finance component of your project. The second point that I want to make when it comes to film finance is that it will take time to raise finance for your project, and you need to be prepared for this. In my experience, it can take anywhere from 3 months to 12 months to raise the private investment component of your finance plan, and sometimes it can take even longer to raise either the private investment component or the entire budget for your film. And so it's important that you understand this from the very beginning of the production process, because the sooner that you can start that finance raising process, the better. In my experience, I've had films that have raised private finance in 3 months, but that's been where the private investment component has been under 100,000. There's a video I did, a client interview with Aaron and Luke, and it took them around 8 months to raise over $400,000 privately for their project. And there's been a film that I've worked on when really it took us even longer than 12 months to raise the entire production budget because we were financing the project in stages. So what's important to understand is that you can start raising finance from really early on in the production process. And with the projects that I work on and the clients that I work with, we start raising finance on the project before we've even finished the script. Because once you know what the film is, then you can really start to put together some of the basic material for the project, like a lookbook or a treatment, and you can certainly put together an investment deck. And at that point, it's important that you go out there and start raising finance for the project so you can start that process really early on, but also so you can start getting feedback from the market. It's important to know, well, is this a project that potential financiers are going to engage with, and they're going to, it's going to resonate with them in some way, and they're going to want to get behind. The sooner you start getting that information from the marketplace, the better. And so, it really is important for you to understand that financing process can take a long period of time, and that you can get started on that financing process early on in the entire production process, even during development of the screenplay. The third point that I want to make is that the finance plan is key, and it's absolutely vital that you get this right. So when you're approaching private investors to raise finance for your project, or you're approaching a debt financier to cash flow the rebate, really what these potential investors or potential financiers are going to look at is your finance plan. They want to know how the budget of the film is going to be put together. And then for the investors, just as importantly, if not more importantly, they want to understand, well, how is revenue going to be generated for the project, and how are they going to get their money back and earn a return on investment. And so if you don't know these numbers, then there's almost no point even going out to a private investor or speaking with a financier, because they're simply going to turn around and ask you for the numbers. So having these numbers to begin with, and then knowing that these numbers are right and being able to back up the numbers that you're presenting with the methodology of how you've arrived at those figures is so crucial to being able to raise finance for your project. So make sure that you get the finance plan right before you go and approach any potential investors or financiers. So at this point, I want you to comment below and tell me about your experience raising finance for your film project. My fourth piece of advice is that if you don't know what you're doing when it comes to raising finance for your project, seek advice. So if you're new to raising finance in general, if you've never done it before for a film project and you're trying to get a more ambitious project off the ground, then you're going to need to upskill. You're going to need to learn about the film financing process and how to raise finance for your project. And the best way to do that is to really seek advice from people that have done it before and that are experienced when it comes to raising film finance. And so that could be trying to engage with a mentor, someone that's more experienced, a producer or an EP that can help give you some pointers about how you might go about raising finance. You could reach out to someone in a unrelated industry, but that has to raise finance within their industry. So obviously the startup world is somewhere where that happens a lot. If you have any contacts in kind of the VC world, well, they're going to really understand raising finance. Now, obviously it's not going to be exactly the same as raising finance for a film, but they're going to understand the general principles of raising finance and how you might go about doing that. And so if you are coming to it fresh, or even if you just want, better skills when it comes to raising finance, then you really want to arm yourself with as much knowledge and advice as you can so that you really give yourself the best chance of success. And of course, if you want advice specific to how to raise finance in the film industry, then seek out those people that offer that advice. Of course, that's something that I offer. It's something that I offer through my online program that I've set up. So if you're interested in checking that out, please click the link below. I'll leave a link in the description to the online program that I've set up that really takes people through the exact process of how I raise finance for my films and how my clients do the same. But of course, there is information out there that you can gather online as well, and really seeking advice from other people, learning and trying to gain more knowledge in these areas and related industries or fields it's gonna set you up for the best chance of success. So if you haven't done that yet and you want to start raising finance for your project, then I encourage you to start seeking out that advice and seeking out that knowledge. My fifth and final piece of advice is to hit the pavement and start having fun. So really there's no way to start raising finance and to actually go out there and do it. So a lot of filmmakers fall into the trap of even putting together investment materials, putting together their finance plan, but then not actually going out there and trying to raise finance. And that's because it is a difficult thing to do. It can be uncomfortable if you're just starting to do it. And so, it's easy to fall into that trap of, well, actually, I'm just going to go back and start working on the screenplay again because I think that needs to be developed a bit more, and I can only raise finance once I finish the screenplay. That's rubbish. You can start raising finance on your project really early on, before you've even finished the screenplay, even when you've just got an outline. And so you don't want to fall into that trap of thinking that there are other more important things to do on the project, or that you need to work on the creative. You just want to go out there, hit the pavement, and start trying to raise finance, and start trying to break through that kind of that feeling of being uncomfortable that you have when it comes to trying to raise finance for a project. And of course, you want to have fun along the way. So, you really want to try and enjoy this process as much as possible. And I can tell you now that when you do raise finance for your project, it's an extremely rewarding experience. And so if you can start doing that and have fun while you're doing that, then it becomes something that you can enjoy doing. Don't think that it is always going to be this extremely daunting task for you that you're just not going to enjoy and is always going to be a pain. That's not the case. Once you start doing it and you have some success, it does become rewarding and you can enjoy the process. And just remember, so many filmmakers before you, established filmmakers like the Coen brothers or the Duplass brothers, they've always had to raise finance for your films. I mean, there's even the case of Scorsese getting De Niro and Pacino and Joe Pesci into a room recently to read for The Irishman to try and raise private finance. And so, I mean, if Scorsese still has to try and raise finance for his projects, then the sooner that we can start getting comfortable with raising finance for our projects, the better, because it is something that's going to be part of your life as a filmmaker. So I encourage you to hit the pavement and start trying to raise finance, start getting comfortable with it, and have fun while you're doing it. So that's my Film Finance 101. But if you're still wondering how you're going to put all the material together to raise finance, how you're going to find potential investors and reach out to them and pitch to them, and how you're going to start hitting that pavement to start raising finance for your project, well, I'm making myself available for one-on-one consultations for my online program that really shows filmmakers how to raise finance for their project and how to get their films into production. So if you want to set up a time to have a chat with me about your project and about how we can implement a finance plan and an investment strategy for your project, follow the link in the description below, set up a time, and let's have a chat about your project and about how we can put in place a plan that is going to get your film financed and into production. And check out these videos next on how to up your filmmaking game. And if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe now, and share it with your friends.